The Gemara, we're in the art scroll, Yutes on base, 19b, 19b2 on the right column, Umanolon the Bar Padilla. How do we know that it's something that's able to be redeemed? You have it, 19b. What was the Gemara talking about? Thank you very much, Mr. Seth. The Gemara was talking about Maisasheni that became Tameh. The Gemara said that Maisasheni that became Tameh, that's in Yerushalayim, and it was not redeemed, and you ate it when it was Tameh, the person is subject to lashon. The person is subject to law, right? Subject to right? So that's what the Gemara says. Again, the Gemara says that, Maisasheni, as you know, is the second type, right? The first and second year and the fourth and fifth year of the cycle. You separate after you take off the truma to the Kohen. You separate the Maisash Rishon for the Levi, and then the Maisasheni. Good morning, Adam. You take to Yerushalayim and you eat in Yerushalayim. That's the Maisasheni. The Torah says you cannot eat Maisasheni outside Yerushalayim. Maisasheni has to be in Yerushalayim. And one of the pasuk says there's an idea of tilmad li'eros Hashem. Like the Rashbam explains, so the Torah wants you to spend time in the holy city to inspire you to Yirah Shemayim. That you should have a proper fear of Hashem. And that's what will happen as a result of coming to the old city and eating and spending your time and eating the food in the old city. Now, if the Maisasheni once the food is brought into Yerushalayim, once the Maisasheni is brought into Yerushalayim, you're not allowed to redeem the food. You have a right to redeem the food outside Yerushalayim if it's you find it difficult to carry. So you go ahead and you redeem it. You redeem the Maisasheni outside Yerushalayim onto coins. You take the coins and you buy food and drink inside Yerushalayim with the coins of the Maisasheni. Now, there is an exception to the rule regarding redeeming Maisasheni in Yerushalayim. What would be the case that you could redeem Maisasheni in Yerushalayim? If the Maisasheni became Tameh. Because the Mishnah stated that if a person ate Maisasheni that was not redeemed, he's subject to lashes. And the Gemara said that Mishnah, the first Mishnah in the Perek, where it says a person ate Maisasheni that wasn't redeemed, that is subject to lashes, is referring to a Maisasheni that was Tameh, and you're in Yerushalayim. And Maisasheni that was Tameh in Yerushalayim, if you eat it in the state of Tumah, it wasn't redeemed, you are subject to lashes. That's what the Gemara says. Again, the Gemara said that when the Mishnah states in the beginning of the Perek that Maisasheni, you're listening, you hear your own? Maisasheni that wasn't redeemed. Right? The Mishnah stated Maisasheni that wasn't redeemed is subject to lashes. Right? The question is, what is the case of the Maisasheni that wasn't redeemed? The Gemara says it's not referring to Maisasheni outside Yerushalayim, because that's the next Mishnah that said if you ate Maisasheni outside the wall, right? So that case tells me the case of eating Maisasheni outside Yerushalayim is subject to lashes. So what is the case when it says that it wasn't redeemed? So the Gemara says we're talking about Maisasheni that's in Yerushalayim, and you didn't redeem it. Now, what's the issue? If Maisasheni is Yerushalayim, that is the place that it needs to be. The issue is that it's Tameh. Maisasheni, when it's Tameh in Yerushalayim, you can't eat Maisasheni when it's Tameh, right? Maisasheni can't be eaten in the status of Tumah. And now that it's in Yerushalayim, what are you supposed to do with it? You're supposed to redeem it. And since you did not, now what does it mean you redeem it? You would the same way you redeem it on coins when it's not Tameh, when it's not contaminated, you redeem it on coins outside Jerusalem. So when it became contaminated and it's in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem, you should redeem it on coins. Okay? And if you didn't redeem it onto coins, and then you ate it when the Maisasheni was Tameh, then it gets lashes. Okay, that's what the Gemara says. What the Gemara now wants to know is where do we know this law that we're saying that Ma'aseh Sheni, if it's in Yerushalayim and it is Tameh and it is contaminated, it is subject to redemption. Because when you look at the Psukim, when it talks about Ma'aseh Sheni, the idea of redemption of Ma'aseh Sheni is referred to when the Ma'aseh Sheni is outside of Jerusalem, right? The Ma'aseh Sheni is outside Jerusalem, it's hard for you to carry. The Torah talks about redeeming it, taking the sanctity of the Ma'aseh Sheni and placing it onto coins and then bringing the coins in. And then once you redeem it onto the coins, then the food you can eat outside Jerusalem. But where do we find this concept that the Ma'aseh Sheni is actually in Jerusalem, in Yerushalayim? The fact that it's contaminated allows you to redeem it inside Jerusalem. Good morning, Ilya. Good to see you. Here's the Gemara right here. We are on 19b. So that is the Gemara's question. We welcome Ilya. So the Gemara says, so the Gemara answers the following. The Amar Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says the following. Minayin l'maaseh sheni shenitma shepoden oso afilu b'Yerushalayim. Adam, you with me? How do we know, Ilya, we're on 19b in the art scroll, 19b2 on the right column, the right paragraph, third paragraph from the top. Minayin, Rabbi Eliezer said, Minayin l'maaseh sheni shenitma. How do we know that Ma'aseh Sheni that became Tameh, that shepoden oso afilu b'Yerushalayim, that this Ma'aseh Sheni, just to bring Ilya up to date, Ma'aseh Sheni is one of the types that you have to separate, and you have to eat it in Yerushalayim. You or your family will eat it, or other people can eat it, and you have to separate it in the first and second and fourth and fifth year of the cycle, of the Shemitah, of the 7-year cycle. And now we're saying that if it became contaminated, if the food became contaminated, you have a right to redeem that food onto coins, and then you could eat the food. Then you'll be able to eat the food because it lost its sanctity. So, Mr. Safi, is that clear? So how do you know that you can redeem it even in Yerushalayim? How Maloma, the pasuk says, Kilo suchal seito. The pasuk says that you can't carry the food if the distance is far. If the distance is for traveling is far, then the pasuk says you redeem the Ma'aseh Sheni. You have a right to redeem Ma'aseh Sheni. The ain se'et, the word se'et, usually the word se'et means to carry, like to carry the nasu. They carried the curtains of the Mishkan, right? Se'et usually means to carry. Like su sha'arim rashechem, lift up, masa, to carry, right? So it says kilo sucha seito, and se'et has another interpretation. The aim se'et ela achila. Se'et also could mean eating. You can't eat it. That's not meaning that when the Torah introduces the idea of redeeming the Ma'aseh Sheni, the Torah says that you can't redeem the Ma'aseh Sheni. And what's the case the Torah says? Why can't you redeem it? Kilo suchal seito. And now we're interpreting kilo suchal seito is because you can't eat it. So therefore, hello Navid. Good morning. So it's saying the reason why you're redeeming it is because you can't eat it. Now, what is that case that you can't eat it? If it became contaminated, the Ma'aseh Sheni, that is the case that you can't eat it. So meaning to say, even though it's in Jerusalem, it's in Yerushalayim, you have a right to go ahead and redeem it. So that usually you redeem it outside Yerushalayim, but now the Torah is giving us another example of when you could redeem it. When can you redeem it? When you can't eat it. What's the case that you can't eat it? You know when you can't eat the Ma'aseh Sheni? If the look what's here, Nathan. If the Ma'aseh Sheni became contaminated, that's when you can't eat it. So that's another case that you could redeem it. So now, if you become contaminated, So that would be, now if you became contaminated, can you redeem it? That doesn't say over here. It only says if the Ma'aseh Sheni became contaminated. If the Ma'aseh Sheni became contaminated, we have to. That's a good question. So now where do we find that se'et means you can't eat it? Usually it means that we're gonna say that the pasuk, the verse is indicating the fact that you can't eat it because the food is contaminated. You have a right to eat it. Where do we find that se'et means eating? Right? The common interpretation, Baruch haba, the common interpretation of se'et means you can't carry. So where do we find in the Torah or Tanakh that the Torah that se'et means eating? So the Gemara says the ein se'et el shachila shenema vayisa masot me'et panav. Yosef took portions of food from his table and he sent it to his brothers. Now this is before Yosef revealed himself to his brothers. The pasuk says, "Vayis," we're on 19b, 2. It says Yosef sent portions of food to his brothers. By the way, he gave Binyamin 5 times for every portion that let's say whatever the size that he gave to one of the brothers, Binyamin got 5 times the amount. He gave Binyamin, the pasuk says he gave Binyamin 5 times the amount of his brother. And the commentaries, the Seforno explains, why did Yosef give Binyamin? This is before he revealed himself, when they brought Binyamin down. Before they planted the goblet and Binyamin's sack, Yosef gave 5 times the amount to Binyamin over the rest of the brothers. So the Seforno says he wanted to see if his brothers learned their lesson not to be jealous. Because the whole point of Yosef not revealing himself to his brothers, why didn't he reveal himself to his brothers earlier? Why did he create this whole situation where, Mori Yehuda, welcome back to Yehuda as well. Why did he create this whole situation that, he accused them of being spies and I want your younger brother to come down? But so many of the commentaries explain, because he wanted to see how far would they go for their brother? Because they got themselves into trouble by selling Yosef because they did not, show that compassion on their brother that they should have had. So therefore, by Yosef planting the goblet and so on and so forth, what will happen is the brothers will have an opportunity. Are they going to stick up for their younger brother? They're going to stick up for their brother or not? That was Yosef's idea. He wanted to help them make sure that they repented. And once he saw they really repented, then he revealed himself. So here Yosef gives Binyamin 5 times the amount of that he gave to his brothers, again, to see, are they going to be jealous of the son of Rachel? Are they going to be jealous? So, but the pasuk says, 19b2, Yehuda. The pasuk says that vayisam masot me'et panav. He gave portions of food. He sent portions of food to his brothers. So we see the word masot also could be interpreted as food. So therefore, when the Torah says, when the Torah gives an allowance of redeeming Ma'aseh Sheni, right? That this is holy food, you separated it, it's holy to a certain extent, and if you're out of Jerusalem, it's because you're far from Jerusalem, you're out of Jerusalem, you have a right to redeem it. And now the Torah gives you another circumstance that you can redeem it. What are that other circumstances you can redeem it? Even if you're in Jerusalem, but if the food became contaminated and you can't eat it because of its contamination, so then you could redeem it. Now, the Gemara says, Amar of BV, Amar of As. Now we want to know, let's say you have Ma'aseh Sheni that's tahor. Everything is pure. Everything, nothing contaminated, right? And we said when you're outside Yerushalayim, that's when the Torah gives you a right to go ahead and redeem the Ma'aseh Sheni, right? You can understand logically why the Torah, let's say you live far away from Jerusalem. Imagine if you're going to have to carry all those 10% of your crops to Jerusalem. It's very difficult. So therefore, the Torah gives you a very practical advice. Instead of hiring wagon loads to ship, the shipping is a big expense, right, Nathan? It's very costly to ship things. And then in the shipping process, it also depends how far it takes, how far the trip is. It could get ruined during that process. It might take you how many days? It might take you from one part of Israel. Imagine you live at the other end of Israel. But the Torah says, you know what? Torah gave you an option. You can go ahead and redeem it. You can redeem the Ma'aser Sheni. It's also interesting to note that you have to add an extra fifth. And then you have, if you redeem it onto the points, but then you're going to get that fifth. But you're going to be using it for yourself. It's expense for the redemption. But you're going to use it for yourself again in Jerusalem. And hopefully the experience in Jerusalem that you're going to eat in Jerusalem will be an inspiring experience. The Torah says, because I want you to learn to fear God. By being in Jerusalem, the holy city, the old city, that's going to help you in your inspiration as a Jew. Now, what about if you're one step out of Jerusalem? Here you have the wall of Jerusalem, and you're one step outside the wall. One step out of Jerusalem. Do you have a right to redeem it, even if you're one step out of Jerusalem? Do we say that, that's not really called you're really away from Jerusalem? When the Torah says when you're away from Jerusalem, it's the Torah, even the literal language of the pasuk is, if the trip is far, you taught you to carry because place is far away from you. If you're one step, let's say you're one step outside Jerusalem. Is that called? Would we say you also have a right to redeem it, or you have to be some sort, something more significant away from Jerusalem that you have a right to redeem it? So the Gemara says, comes from Bivi Ravasi, and he tells us that even if you're one step out of Jerusalem, you have a right to redeem it. Minayin le'ma'aser sheni tahar, ma'aser sheni that's pure. Shepoten oto that you redeem it afilu b'sia achat chutz l'chuma. Even if you are one step outside Jerusalem, even though the literal language of the verse, now again, the Torah was given with an explanation. The written law, you don't just read the Chumash and say, okay, this is the meaning of I understand everything. No, Torah was given an explanation. What does it mean? What is the meaning? How is it explained? Right? The Torah was given with the written law, there's the oral law. By the way, I was learning yesterday, Birkat Torah. When you get an Aliyah, what do you say in Aliyah? You say, you say the other way. The end of this bracha. We made the Sfaradim say the text a little differently, right? Right? How do you say the text there? Something like that, right? Nathan, is that the language? Torah emet is the written law. You gave us a Torah truth. An everlasting life that you implanted into us. That is the oral law. That is the Torah Shabbat Peh. There's a written law and the oral law, and only together with the written law and the oral law is the Torah complete. It's not complete. It's not meant to be given. It's not a full. It's not complete. Reading a pasuk without having an explanation of the pasuk, because you come to the wrong explanation. Many people who are not observant Jews, they read the pasuk and they don't come to a true explanation, understanding what the Torah means. They'll read eye for an eye, and they'll think it means literally an eye for an eye. So we're not saying you're not got there, but it's not the law. It's the value of an eye for an eye. There's a great Chumash commentary called the Torah Tamima. What is the Torah Tamima? Torah Tamima means the Torah being complete Torah. He takes the oral law, he connects all the oral law. He finds the Gemara connected to the pasuk. So wherever the pasuk, we have a pasuk in the Torah, he'll show you where the Gemara is connected, elaborates on that pasuk, and he'll explain that Gemara. That's called Torah Tzima. That's what makes the Torah complete. It's a great commentary on the Chumash.
In regards to the ones that you're very, very rich. Your masters are so big that even it's just one step is over, too much. Then in that case, it's fine.
Right. Even though, because of the carrying process, right? Even that one step, which look at the Gemara says. The Gemara says, Shenema, ki lo suchal seito. Because the pasuk says, because there's an issue with carrying. That if there's an issue, meaning the Torah is emphasizing, because you have an issue of carrying, you're outside of Jerusalem, and you're going to have to carry, that's going to be the cause of why we're going to allow you to redeem it. So it's not the Torah, even though the Torah does talk about the fact that you're away, you're a distance away, but the Torah doesn't only talk about being a distance away. The Torah also says, like Ilya says, there's an issue of carrying. So I have an issue of carrying, even if I'm one step away, but the fact that it's going to be, I'm one step when I need to carry this load, and I'm away from Jerusalem, so the Torah is allowing me to go ahead and redeem the Ma'aseh Sheni. Now, so the Gemara continues. But what do you mean? You're telling me that the word seito about the carrying is emphasizing as long as there's a need to carry the food, you're allowed to redeem it if you're outside Jerusalem. But we said, we said we need the word seito. Good morning, Simon. We said we need the word seito to teach me that even if you're in Jerusalem, if you can't eat the Ma'aseh Sheni, because the Ma'aseh Sheni is contaminated, you have a right to redeem it. So how could you use the word say? We already used the seito to teach you something else. So we don't want to double dip. How can we use the same word to tell us another? The Gemara is saying it seems like it's coming to tell us about seito is not coming to tell us about carrying. Seito is coming to tell us that if you can't eat the Ma'aseh Sheni because the Ma'aseh Sheni became contaminated, it's not talking about carrying. So the Gemara says no, it is talking about carrying. But if the pasuk is just referring to that the fact that you can't eat it in Cain, then the pasuk should say clearly a word that's commonly used for eating. Lemakra ki lo sucha lo chlo. What's the language when you want to refer to eating? You would say the normal word for eating is achila. Lo sochlu. Torah says don't eat blood, right? Don't eat pig, right? So losucha say the Torah should have said you can't eat it. That's the word that the Torah should have used. The fact that the Torah says my seito, why did the Torah use the language of seito, of carrying? It's coming to teach us this law that as long as there's an issue of carrying, you're outside of Jerusalem, and you might need to carry the food, you have a right to redeem the food. You know, the way the Torah, the usage of a word is key, right? Type of word that the Torah uses to describe something is gonna make the difference. The fact that you could have, if the Torah is only referring to the idea of eating, when the Torah says kilos suchal steito, then it should say the word achila. To say the normal word referring to eating. The fact that you don't use the normal words referring to eating, you use a different word, so therefore it's coming to tell us carrying. But the Gemara says if that's the case, so maybe it's only coming to tell us the law of carrying. It's only telling us this law of carrying. How do you have a right to say that seito also refers to eating? You just told me, if you're referring to eating, say the normal word for eating, which is achilah. The fact that it didn't say the word normal word for eating, said seito, you tell me it refers to carrying. So maybe it's only referring to carrying. How do you even know? How could you know the law that if you can't eat it because it's contaminated, if the pasuk is maybe the verse is not referring to eating at all? But the Gemara says, I'll tell you why I know it's also referring to eating. Because the Gemara says in Cain, in the normal way, when you talk about carrying, what is the normal word that the Torah will use for carrying? You can't look kachto. I mean, the normal word in the Torah is like you can't take it. That is, that would be the that would be the type of word the Torah would use. But the fact that the Torah does not use or you can't bring it. Right. It said No, right. It says you can't seito. The use of the word seito. Why does the Torah use the word seito? If it's referring specifically to carrying, there's another word that's the common word referring to carrying. If you want to use the word carrying, you say lekachto, lahavio. That's the normal word that you would use for carrying. So why does the Torah say, you can't take it, you can't carry it? My seito, why is the odd usage of a word? The fact that the Torah uses a word that's not common to describe the carrying is coming to teach us an additional law. It's coming to teach us Shema Mina Tarti. It's coming to teach us two ideas. It's coming to tell us about the carrying, as long as you're outside Jerusalem. Even if you're one step outside of Jerusalem, Nathan, you have a right to redeem it. Because it's an issue of carrying. I have to carry all this food. I can redeem it if I'm one step outside of Jerusalem. When you walk into Jerusalem, you can't redeem the food anymore. You have to eat it there. But once I'm one step out of Jerusalem, I could redeem it. Why? Because the Torah talks about the issue of carrying. I'm away from Jerusalem, and there's an issue of carrying, I can redeem it. But if the Torah is only coming to teach us the law of carrying, then the Torah should have used the common word that refers to carrying. The fact, Mr. Safi, that Torah used the word which is not the 9 out of 10 word that's used for carrying, why does the Torah go out of the way? Why isn't Torah consistent in the usage of its word? Right, Yehuda? The Torah, by using the word seito, is coming to teach us another law. Which other law? That seito could also refer to eating. If you can't eat it because that the food is contaminated, you have a right to redeem it. That's why by the Torah using the word seito, which is not the normal word for carrying, and it's not the normal word for eating, is telling us both this law of eating and both the law of carrying. That's what the Gemara says. So that's how we get to that conclusion. Seito has two meanings. Seito means to carry, and seito also means to eat. We found in the Torah by Yosef, by Yosef and his brothers, the word seito refers to eating of food, eating of portions. And we find that seito means to carry. So we're saying it has both meanings here. So we're able to learn both laws regarding Ma'aseh Sheni. That's a key. The Torah uses an unusual word because it wants to teach us multiple ideas. Yotev Rav Chanina of Rav Hoshia v'Kamaboyelo. Apischad Yerushalayim Mahu. Here we want to know regarding redeeming. You're standing on the entranceway of Jerusalem. You're standing by the entrance of Jerusalem, and you want to know, can I redeem the Ma'aseh Sheni? I'm standing on the entrance of Jerusalem. So what's the question? Where am I? Where is the food? I have food on me. I have the Ma'aseh Sheni on me. Where am I? Where is the food? So the Gemara explains what's the question here. Because you just told me a minute ago that if you're one step out of Yerushalayim, you told me you have the right to redeem the food, right? The Ma'aseh Sheni, that the Torah says you're supposed to bring to Jerusalem on the first and second and fourth and fifth year, 10%, you have to eat in Yerushalayim. The Torah says, but you redeem it out, if you have a right to redeem it outside Yerushalayim. So what's the question if I'm in the entranceway? We said if you're outside, you can redeem it. Once you're inside, you can't redeem it. So what's the question once you're on the entranceway? So now he elaborates and explains his question. Shita, it's obvious. Hu b'chutz. If you're outside the wall, and the load is in front of you, you're holding the food like this, right? You're holding the food. I got my morning, brother. I got my grapes, my olives, my grain. I'm holding it like this. Inside that's inside the wall. And I am standing outside the wall. Now, who do you go by? You go after the person who's standing outside the wall. I'm outside the wall, so I should be able to redeem it. But the load is actually inside Jerusalem. So the Gemara said, if the load is inside Jerusalem, inside the wall, there's no question. I cannot redeem it. The food has already arrived. The food, I'm holding the food is inside Jerusalem, right? The Torah says, when the food is in Jerusalem, the halakha is you can't redeem pure food, pure Ma'aser Sheni, once it enters Jerusalem. This allowance that the Torah said you could redeem the food is just to help enable you to get it to Jerusalem, to make it easy for you, to make it, right, Morris? Make it easy for the guy. So you shouldn't have to transport it. But once it's already there, once the food has entered inside Jerusalem, I can't redeem it anymore. That, the Gemara says, is obvious. And therefore, if it's obvious, that is not the question of the rabbi. Nathan, you got the case? I separated my Sheni back in Petach Tikva. I separated my Sheni now, and now I come to Jerusalem. I'm holding the food in front of me, inside the wall, and I'm standing outside the wall. I can't redeem it. The food has entered Jerusalem. That the Gemara says Epshita. The wall of the city has captured, so to speak, has taken the Ma'aser Sheni, has entered into the wall, inside the wall. Therefore, if the Ma'aser Sheni, good morning, if the Ma'aser Sheni has entered in, even if I'm standing outside the wall of Jerusalem, once the food, if I'm holding and the food is inside, I can't redeem it. However, hu bifnim u'ma'asel b'chutz ma'hu. This is the question the rabbi wants to know. I have the food on my back, let's say. I'm carrying the food on my back. I'm standing inside Jerusalem, inside the wall. And the food is outside the wall. What's the status? Can I redeem that food at that moment? I happen to be in Jerusalem. I happen to be inside the wall. But the food is outside. Right outside. But it's on me. Okay? I'm carrying the food. So what, or even if I would be backwards, right? The food is this way, and I'm inside, and the food is outside. What status? The bottom line is, I'm inside, but the food, the Ma'aser Sheni, is not inside. Similar type of. So I'm inside. The question is, do you go after me, or do you go after the food where it is? The food is actually outside of Jerusalem at this point. So how much does that play a role? That's going to be the question over here in the Gemara. The Gemara says, Saba b'debei Rabbi Shimon Yochai. There was one elderly man that said over a braita from the yeshiva, from the Beit Midrash of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, from Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai's teachings, and someone said over a halacha regarding this question. The pasuk says, "Ki yirchak mimcha hamakom." The place is far. There's a distance mimcha. It's away mimcha from you. That the food is away from you, and therefore, when it's away from you, then you have a right. You're away from Yerushalayim, and you have a right to redeem the Ma'aser Sheni. So the Gemara is learning that the word mimcha means that it's away from the complete person. Every person has a certain extension, right? You put your hands out like this. How far do you extend your hand? Yourself. So what's called yourself, if yourself is away from Jerusalem, then you have the right to redeem it. But if yourself is already in Jerusalem, because you're standing inside Yerushalayim, the food is outside Yerushalayim, so therefore that has it's not away from you. because you are inside Jerusalem. Let's look at the language of Rashi, how he will explain it. Look at the Rashi on Yud Tet Amud Beis 19b. He says, Mimulach. It's the third wide line in the Rashi. You have the third wide line in the Rashi in the wide lines. So the Gemara says, what does Rashi say? It says, Mimcha means mimiluacha, from your fullness. So look at Rashi. Mikol mili shalcha. For whatever is considered your fullness is yourself and your extension of your hand. Umasa shel adam chashiv miluo. What I carry, if I'm carrying something, I have something on my back, that's considered the extension of the person. And therefore, since this food is not it's not far, it's connected to me, and I am in Yerushalayim, so therefore that is not subject to redemption. Again, for something to be subject to redemption, it would have to have been, if let's say if the food would be away from my extension, away from me, and away from Jerusalem, then it would be subject to redemption. But since the food is close to Jerusalem in a way that I am in Yerushalayim, and if I am in Yerushalayim, and whatever's on me is part of me. If it's a part of me, if I'm inside Jerusalem, the Torah says only if something can be away. But if it's the fact that it's not away because it's connected to me and I am I'm within the walls, so therefore it's subject. It's considered as if it's inside Yerushalayim. So that's what the Gemara says. So from the word, the fact that the food is attached to me, it's not considered away from Jerusalem because I am inside Jerusalem. The clear is a little not so simple. This drasha again.
Either one of your inside is good.
Right. The food in me is one. We're going to say, and as long as I'm inside, that's not considered that the food is distant from Yerushalayim. Okay, it would have to have been that. That's what the Gemara is saying. So the Gemara now has the following question. Nokit lo bekanyamai. Rav Papa asked the following question. Nokit lo bekanyamai. I was carrying the Ma'aser Sheni. I'm inside. The Ma'aser Sheni is, but instead of being on my back, I'm carrying it with a stick. It's at the end of a stick. Like some of these Chinese people, you see pictures of the stick. They carry food stuff with the stick attached to the stick. So how do we look at the stick? Do we look at the stick that it's also like part of me? And if I'm inside, it's considered it's inside. Or do we say, since it's not on my back, it's a separate item that's holding the Ma'aser Sheni, it's the stick, then maybe the law will be different. So that's what the Gemara says, Teku. The Gemara says, the fact that it's not on your shoulder directly, you're not carrying it on your back. The fact that it's attached to a stick, whether that will be considered as if it's inside or not, the Gemara does not resolve the question. Maybe tomorrow we'll see what the halacha on that would be. Take out the Rambam, but we should be zocha that they have the building of the Beit HaMikdash. We'll have these questions about Ma'aser Sheni. Can we redeem it over here? Can we not redeem it over here? I want to wish everyone a Chodesh Tov. We should have a beautiful davening. The Chodesh should be a beautiful month for everybody. Have a great day, everyone. Welcome, Ilya. Thank you, Mr. Bitesh. Have a great day. Chodesh Tov. Welcome back, Nathan. Yes, Ilya.
No, was there? No, he.
You only can redeem it outside Jerusalem. The exception would be if a guy became contaminated. If the food was contaminated, you can redeem it in Jerusalem. That's the exception.
I was asking, you can't tie a hammock on a tree on Shabbos, but if there's a separation, there's